excited to bring you this youth leadership development presentation today. So, we're going to introduce our speaker. Mental health advocate Richard Taylor Jr. has created a decade as a powerful leader and voice of impact for people around the world. He's the founder of Tailor-Made Empowerment, a parent company that oversees the Richard Taylor Jr. brand, publishing and several consulting ventures for corporate clients, a respected self-published author of 7 published books, selling over 35,000 copies, and hosts a global podcast. Like a monthly or weekly or?
3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, yeah.
Okay. Taylor also serves on the board of directors for NAMI, National which is and that's here on the east side in Washington State. Richard's become a highly sought-after speaker who brings an empowering message of victory by creating a unique way to make the conversation of mental health easier and digestible for all of his audiences. He's been recognized for normalizing the conversation and helping people shift from talking about mental health to actually mobilizing in their efforts towards healing and freedom. Richard's story of overcoming morbid obesity, depression, multiple suicide attempts, failing in college, and domestic abuse have struck a change within people throughout different walks of life. We are very fortunate to have him here with us today. Please welcome Richard Taylor.
Thank you, my friend. Yep, we're good to go. Thank you, everybody. It is so good to be here. So I promise I'm gonna try not to blow your ears out because I project very easily with my voice. But I know we need this because we got our students who are gonna be watching this. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna treat it like old school Ricky Lake, right? We got our crowd and our audience here, and then we got you all watching at home. So welcome to our students. Thank you all so much. I wanna make this a really just comfortable and open space of community. Obviously we got leaders in the space here, but we're doing this for you all, and that's what's most important. So I wanna start the message here just with you all to say that I know how it is. We've been stuck on screens for almost 2 years now. I think about a week from now, we'll make 2 full years, right? And so that being said, I know that these things can kind of start to feel like a drag. I don't want that to be the case. So we're going to keep this engaging. I want us to be able to laugh. We might shed a tear or two, but while we're here in this space, I just want us to be intentional because I believe that there's something that each and every one of us can take from today's presentation. So that being said, thank you so much for the great intro. We got to pivot, right? We're moving forward in our work, and everybody's not PC anymore. Amazing presentation set up for you, but it's all in my head as well, so I can flow with it either way. I'll get to our title and topic in a second, but I do just want to say thank you to Samantha first and foremost, and to all of our Chamber of Commerce members and our businesses that are here present today. I know that this is the first time that you all have been back in some time, right? And that is exciting, right? As an extroverted extrovert who bounces off the walls, I can tell you that I have been in full cabin fever for 2 years, right? So I might get a little loopy myself today. I just say bear with me, okay? It is what it is. But that being said, though, really excited to be here. You named off a ton of the work that I do, and I'm not really big on titles, labels, and positions anymore. I'll get to why that is in a second. However, I do understand that there is some power behind us carrying different titles and positions that can help to open doorways for others and really make a change in the lives of others. That being said, though, there are a few things that I did want to just, you mentioned it, and we've got our amazing executive director from NAMI Eastside, Barbie Collins-Young, in the building today. So Barbie, thank you so much for coming. She is phenomenal. She can make an 8 p.m. board meeting bearable, right? And so thank you for the, thank you so much, Barbie. I get a chance to do a lot of amazing work. Speaker, author, podcaster. I also serve as the worship director for a Seattle church over in the South Lake Union community. Music is my second love. So stage presence actually originally came from singing first before it actually was a thing of speaking. You mentioned having to come up in church. Yeah, I was that 5-year-old having to do Oh Happy Day solos, right? So I'm with you, right? I'm with you 100%. But I am so excited for our time together today. I know that we're talking about this concept around leadership, and I think it's really important, but I wanted to take a different approach today. Not just how we lead, but I think as we have been in this position for the last 2 years, maybe some tweaks to how we lead. But more importantly, I want to talk about leading here in this space, leadership from the inside out, and how it affects those that we serve. And this is wildly important because here's the truth, right? And it's not to say that life has been bad for us, but I think all of us in the room can be very honest when it comes to the fact that the last 2 years have presented, if not for nothing else, at least one challenge in our lives. We all have seen something different. Me personally, I've lost 5 family members that I never got a chance to say goodbye to because of COVID. For some of us, grief is a very real thing that haunts us to this day. For others, we serve individuals that maybe we had to let go of from working because of the fact that we couldn't hold it together anymore. Some of us that work in our school districts, we might have lost staff members and teachers, whether from the virus or just from age, and we didn't get a chance to properly see them off or send them off. For others, it's the fact that you were parents in this space, or maybe about to be a parent for the first time, whatever the case might be. In this, you've had challenges that have been presented in your own personal life, and then you couple that in with COVID and everything that we've seen. Whether we know it or not, we have had to constantly pick up the ball and keep life moving like we normally would. And in this, each and every one of us has been presented with some form of a traumatic moment or experience. Trauma from the standpoint of nothing else, you've had to shift how you do what you do. Maybe change in a moment where you didn't expect it, and all of a sudden you have to reshape your life and the things that you do. And before I get into the reason why we're here today and talk about that, me personally, I feel like the last 2 years have been a solid reminder of the experiences that I've had that have led me to this space. You mentioned the work and all of the things that I do, and that's great, and I got my 7 books here and cool. But there was a lot of things, a lot of traumas, a lot of experiences, a lot of moments that led to all of this. And here's the reality. Not all of us come out of it okay. But I want to encourage you all with that thought too. Even though we don't come out okay, that's still okay. Because I believe that there's still an opportunity for us to figure out what needs to be done so that we can shift, pivot, and get to where we need to be. For me personally, I'm very passionate about the work around mental and emotional health because of the fact that it's lived experience. I was bullied in school at the age of 10. At the time, I was a little short, chubby kid. They called me doughboy, got picked on a lot, right? And I just want to be very mindful of us in this space and then us watching online. Trigger warning with a few things that we have that I will discuss today. That being said, for us in the room, for those watching on the recording, if you find yourself being triggered by anything that's said today, I just want to encourage you all not to run away from it, because I know how the fight or flight feeling immediately causes us to feel like we want to move. But I actually want to encourage us to lean in. You feel a moment where you oh my God, that's kind of rattling me. Lean into it. If it is a trigger, it's okay to lean in, because with that, I truly do believe that as we lean in, we get a chance to face what it is that maybe we're either afraid of, that has hindered us for so long, that has bothered us. And it's an opportunity, whether we know it or not, in our leaning to be able to start the inner working to build and grow and learn and heal. So that being said, for me, there was one day in particular during this 6th grade year. I'm probably 10 or 11 years old at the time. I was tired of being picked on. The anxiety started, depression started, and I grew up in the hood of Chicago. I've only been in Washington State for 5 years. So we were lucky enough if we had one counselor in our school space, right? We did not talk about mental health in our community. So for me, I didn't know what was going on. And one day, after being picked on by my bullies, I said, I'm tired of this. Enough is enough. I'm ready to make a change. My mindset, I said, I'm gonna just cut some fat off of my body and everything's gonna be okay. That was the doorway to self-mutilation. From there, over the next 10 years, I had multiple suicide attempts. Interestingly enough, though, 2 years after that, I got to high school, shoot up in height, lose the weight, slim out, turned out to be 6 foot tall. Doctor said I was gonna be 6'4". My shoe size, look, come on. Literally, I thought my parents were gonna kick me out the house. From the age of 10 to 14, my foot grew every half to the half year mark. From 10 to 14, doctors swore up and down, oh, he's gonna be at least 6'4". Mind you, I played quarterback in high school and college too, right? And so for me, I'm like, oh wow, like I'm about to be Cam Newton. Like, this is amazing, right? And so when it didn't happen, I was like, I'll stick with my 6 feet. I was a high-level athlete. I actually got a chance to play with the likes of Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Tim Tebow. Playing quarterback was really big for me because it was the first opportunity that I got a chance to lead. Interestingly enough, I did not take full advantage of that opportunity because I was too afraid to at the time. And the reason why is because of the fact that I had so many things that I had dealt with that I hadn't sorted out, and I was too afraid to use my voice. I was too afraid to use my story. I was too afraid to use what was in my hands, gifts, talents, you name it. And I want to put that out there because I know for some of us, even though we carry these roles and we're doing the work, I truly do believe that no matter where we are, age, gender in this room and in this space, there's still opportunity for us to utilize something within inside of us that's going to make a change for the students and the communities that we serve. So for me, I'll go throughout high school. On the outside, everything looks great. Internally, I struggled for a very long time. By the time my senior year came around, I took a hit on the field, found out that I had a heart murmur, essentially. And from there, every scholarship offer that I had was snatched away from me. In my mind, life is over. I'm not going to be good at anything else. I had, to a degree, kind of pigeonholed myself as if football, sports, athletics was the only thing that I'd ever be good at. So for me, I now had to go into college the normal way, the regular way. And in doing this, what I found was that imposter syndrome kicked in very easy because of the quick, dramatic shift of that experience. And so from there, over the next 18 months, from August of 2006 to January of 2008, my life went into a downward spiral very fast. I failed in college for the first 3 semesters, 1.4 GPA, 1.5, 1.6. By the time that third semester rolled around, I was on academic probation, and I was getting ready to be academically dismissed from the school. So I'm the other Husky. I went to Northern Illinois University. I know we got some UW folks in the building, so that's a whole other conversation for another day. But I go into this downward spiral, and from this downward spiral, what I find is that I'm opening myself up to a bunch of different things because of the fact that these experiences that I was going through put me in a position to where I just wanted to feel something, a sense of love, a sense of belonging, something. And I think a lot of us can relate to that in this space. It might come and show itself in different forms, but something. We want to feel something, definitely in moments and times where it gets hard with the reality around us. So for me, this is what happened. I opened myself up to different things. I'm failing in school. From August of 2006 to January of 2008, I gained 170 pounds. I went from 200 pounds to 370. My physical health got very bad. And then from there, look, the romantic relationship piece, and I think we could do a whole seminar on this alone. But that being said, I ended up becoming the victim of domestic abuse for a year and a half, not realizing that I was trading in something just to get something in return, but didn't realize how much of an effect that would have on me personally. This is not a ho-hum moment, so I don't want us to take it as that. But trigger warning, all of this leads us up to Dr. King Day of 2008, which was celebrated January 21st of that year. And on this day, I got fed up with everything around me. There were a lot of moving pieces. And I had one final suicide attempt where I took a blade down my wrist 5 times where the word love now sits. And in this, I woke up in the hospital with the doctor cleaning me up, letting me know, Mr. Taylor, you tapped the main vessel at the top of your wrist, but no blood would come out. His next words to me were, you have a purpose in life and you need to figure out what it is. And in this, little did that doctor know that purpose was the very thing that I had struggled with for so long in trying to find myself and in trying to figure out how to lead. So that being said, with the help of some great people who reached out to me not too long after that had happened, I was able to start getting the help that I needed from a multitude of ways, right? The mental and the emotional side, going to counseling, but then also too, I know, and I know we got some, where's our Washington School District folks at in here? I know we got some. Thank you all so much for coming in. You might be familiar with the programs, Educational Talent Search, Upward Bound, but those are some of the programs that actually reached out to me in this space and time. And so that was the shift for me. That being said, it's led me to everything and everything that I've been able to do right now. But I want to flip this back on you all, because that same help that can be provided in somebody's traumatic experience and in the moments where we feel like we won't be able to make it, which is what COVID has presented to all of us, but definitely to those that we serve, our students, our communities. I just want to talk real quick when it comes to what you can do in being able to help, right? So we had this great elaborate presentation. We're going to act like it's still on the board here, right? And the title of it was, Where Do We Go From Here? Now, originally, this was supposed to be something that we were doing when it comes to moving forward with COVID. But it seems like over the last 2 days, that's also been a question that we are now asking because Russ and Bobby are gone, right? And so I want us to stick to this portion today with it, right? Ooh, is it too soon? I'm sorry. We'll be all right. We'll be all right. You know, I can still play. I can throw about 60 yards still. Like, I run 7 miles every day. I was like, this is my moment, coach. Put me in the game. But that being said, though, a few thoughts that I want to give you all. And take this for yourselves, because maybe you need it personally, internally, but then take it for the communities that you serve as well. The first, it actually comes from my 5th book, The Other Side, Freedom from Depression and Suicide. First chapter in this book is called There Is Hope. And this is the first point that I want to give you all today. There is hope. It's so funny. I just took my Christmas tree down 3 weeks ago, right? Don't talk about me. We can have a separate conversation about this later, right? Don't judge me. My tree was up literally November 1st, right? I was shimmying with Michael Jackson's Thriller on October 31st, and November 1st, boom, it was Michael Bublé or bust. Like, so there is no in between with me, and thank God my wife didn't kick me out, right? And so took the tree down. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because the Christmas spirit in me has caused me now not to just watch Lifetime and Hallmark Christmas movies, but it's also caused me to watch Lifetime and Hallmark year-round, right? And one of the things that I think is so interesting is that they do a great job, as do other Hollywood movies and different movies that we see, specifically around the realm of romance, that hope is this one moment, boom, it happens overnight. Yeah, if you need an example, let's take the girl from the big city who's got to go back to the small town to help mom and dad's suffering business, and in the process, she meets a guy. That guy also happens to be the villain at the start of the movie, because his company is the one that's taking mom and dad's building down, right? And in this, we go through this 2-hour rigmarole, and by the end of it, we fall in love and everything's okay. I found the guy of my dreams in 3 days, 90-day fiance, boom, we're done. And for some of us, we look at that and it's like, oh my God, that's hope. If we took it to the realm of sports, we might look at hope as the game-winning touchdown, the game-winning shot, maybe the walk-off grand slam home run. But what if hope doesn't come through those ways? What if hope for the girl, she does all of the same things that she did in that movie, but what if hope says, I'm going to take some steps in between, like, sir, do you have any children around the country that nobody knows about? How's your credit, right? Like, we got to take some time to really figure it out, right? What if hope is not the walk-off grand slam home run, but what if it's a run batted in? What if it's not the touchdown, but what if it's just enough to get us to the next point? What if we find hope in the small, consistent baby steps in our lives and then in the work that we do for those that we serve? Same for you all watching here. What if hope is you continuing to do things on a smaller scale that are going to lead to everything greater that you see? The second point that I want to give you all actually comes from my latest book, The 31 Days of Power, A Simplified Approach to Everyday Mental Health. That is, we all have a mental health. This is the second point that I want to give you all, and this is where we're going to dive a little deeper real quick. I remember when I first presented this idea of we all have a mental health, I was presenting at a conference on the East Coast 4 years ago with a room of about 200 mental health professionals from around the country. Somebody asked me a question, and that was my answer. That was my response. And one lady hopped up just like super angry, and I was like, whoa, I didn't think it would trigger like one particular individual. And she was like, I don't have any mental health issues, like just shot up, like mad, angry. I'm like, whoa, like, how did we get here? This is happening. So I had to break it down to her. Simply put, we all have a mental health. The same way that we all carry a physical health, we have a mind, and we have these emotions, and they're connected, right? In the same way with our physical, when we don't take care of it, we can sometimes start to see struggles and issues arise. But in that, though, it's not to say that it's a bad thing, right? I know we have these conversations now around our mental and around our emotional, but we all have a mental health is simply to say that I've got something that I need to be proactive rather than reactive about. For my students that are watching, it's the same for you. We all have a mental health. And here's the thing, I had to remind the lady, I was like, I'm not saying that we all have mental health issues. I'm simply saying that we've got a brain that we must be proactive with. But I want to make sure that I'm very clear for those of you all watching there and here. Even if you were an individual that found yourself being diagnosed or somebody that has issues or somebody that struggles, I just want to make sure that we're clear that that doesn't make you any less than of a person, a leader, an individual that's going to do great things now, in the future, in your future. I want us to make sure that we're clear with that, right? It doesn't take away from your value, your worth, who you are, what you're capable of doing. And I know a lot of times it can feel that way because we've got this extra monkey on our back. But I just want to let you know, illness or not, you are somebody that is still purpose and destined. You are still somebody that can go out and do great things. Your talents, your gifts, it doesn't take away from that. But I want to make sure that we're clear with that second point that we all have a mental health, right? So I'm going to use my phone because I actually have my presentation here on my phone, right? And I'm not even going to go through all of our points, but I do just want to talk about a few of them real quick. Your mental health, no matter what state it's in, is not a burden. And I think that this is important for us in the room to know, but then those of you all as well. Now, this is where we get into how we lead in order to help those that we serve. We are coming back into a space now after 2 years where we've got to start asking the question, where do we go, not for ourselves now, but for those that are depending on us, for those that we will have interactions with. And in this, one of the greatest things that we can do is to make sure that whoever we're serving, whether a student, heck, we can take it into our own homes, our family, you are not a burden just because you are trying to figure this thing out coming out of whatever this is that we're in right now. Yes, it's still COVID, but I'm like, it's a hybrid, right? Like, we're taking masks off in a few days and we're going to finally get a chance to see what people really look like, right? That's interesting to me alone, right? I am trying to make sure that I do not crack on stage on Sunday when I'm singing, because it'll be the first time that I'm seeing 200 people's faces for real. And I'm gonna be like, oh, that's it? Okay, here we go. Like, that's me. I'm silly. That being said, the next thing that I want to encourage you all as leaders to do that I think will trickle down as you lead by example will be prioritizing yourself. And this is the way that I put it. I said we must learn to prioritize taking advantage of self-care moments, even if it's not in our desired way. The reason why I say this is because I'm pretty sure a lot of us right now would love to be sitting on an island, maybe bottomless something while we're in the sand and just kick back with 85-degree weather. That's not the self-care that some of us are going to be able to do right now. But in this, when we have moments where we can pause, how are we taking care of ourselves? How are we moving distractions out of the way, right? Not like unproductive activities, while they might bring us fun and joy. How are we moving those out of the way to make sure, if just 30 minutes, I'm taking some time to reflect, I'm taking some time to consider where I am, because I don't want to run the risk of starting to bleed out on those that I'm supposed to lead. And I want us to be very, very careful. The reason why I brought up earlier when we first started this whole thing of how COVID hit and we just kept moving is because for some of us, we didn't fully have an opportunity to deal with us. Like, we literally had to sweep it under the rug. Me, losing family members, sweep it under the rug. Losing staff, sweep it under the rug. And we kept going. And we started carrying more and more weight. And so I just want to encourage you all to take advantage of those moments and times where you have an opportunity to prioritize yourself. Our leadership has the ability to rebuild and restore the mental and emotional state of the communities that we serve, right? But how do we do that in the process of restoration? The first thing that I will give you all when it comes to where we move and how we help those is I think we've got to make sure that we're playing our part. Play your part. Right? And the reason why I say this, we all play a different role for a greater purpose in the lives of the students and the communities that we serve. And so in this, what is your role? Has it shifted over the last 2 years? Maybe you've changed titles, or maybe some of the requests that are coming your way now look a little different. But I want to take this deeper than just the work you do, because I don't think it's just the title. I don't think it's just the rap sheet of what we're supposed to do from what we had when we first signed up for the job. That's shifted now. That's changed. And in this, I want us to be mindful. But I also want to encourage you all, in knowing your role and playing your role, please consider this. You do not have to be everything for everybody. I think a lot of times as leaders, when we start to try and help, we can do too much because we haven't actually taken the time to consider, what is my position in this season and in this moment? So simply put, look, when we look at how they water, like our farmers, right? You might have somebody that sows or tills the ground. Somebody else might sow. Somebody else nurtures. Somebody else might water. And somebody else is going to find it once it's full of blossom and take care of it. In this, what is the role that you play within it? Specifically, teachers, staff members working in our school system, for our students, those in the community. You got staff that work for you. What is my role greater than just being your superior or the person that you come to? What is my role when it comes to leaving you with something greater? I want us to consider that, right? And you don't have to be everything to everybody. That being said, the next point that I want to make sure that we're mindful of is intentionally integrating ourselves, right? There's power in asking how we can help, and let's learn to lean in with people. Many times we don't fully take advantage of those moments where we can lean in. Right? Like, and when I say lean in, I'm not just talking about we walk in, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Okay, good. And then we just move by each other. No, right? I think we need a greater level of intentionality now, definitely with the weight that's being carried from the last 2 years, to say, how can I better assist and help you? More than just a how are you doing, let's really get to the meat of it, right? I think in doing this, what we will find is that individuals will start to feel safe around us, which leads me to the next point that I want to give you all. Let's make sure that we're creating safe spaces to air out issues. One of the things that I'm constantly going to hark back to is that we typically just sweep things under the rugs, right? And in that, students see us, our communities see us do that, and they do the same thing. But what happens if we can start creating safe spaces where we can just have this aired out, where we can talk, where we are actually having maybe healing circles or opportunities to where, we're going to pull off from the flow of things and pivot because of the fact that people are struggling to reconnect. And I want to make sure that this wasn't even part of my presentation, but I feel like this is something that needs to be said. I've got an opportunity since November to start traveling again with my work. Typically, I'm speaking at colleges, corporations, Fortune 500, you name it, right? But I did several college tours between November and now. And one of the things that I noticed was that students and communities in general struggled to reconnect. It's almost like I need permission to, is it okay for me to raise my hand and say something? Or, are people looking at me? Like, what are they going to think? Like, there was so much within these different colleges that I went to, from the East Coast to down south to up north to back on this coast. And I'm noticing more and more that because of what we've been through, it's hard for people to feel safe coming back into this space. We got a chance to talk earlier, though, Samantha, and one of the things that we understand is that this physical space that we have the opportunity to be in right now is so needed. We need this moment. We need each other, right? Extrovert, introvert, doesn't matter. We are all relational beings to some capacity, and we need each other. It was amazing. Look, I didn't get a chance. I intentionally didn't do much on the side of moving around because I just wanted to sit back. And it was great to see all of you all in the space today, catching up, reconvening, smiles on face. Are you hugging? Okay, cool. Give me a hug. Like, all of that. It was important. And just seeing that from you all in each of these conversations, that's going to play such a huge part when it comes to us being able to take that from this room and take it into the spaces where we serve, right? Creating these moments of safe spaces where people can feel comfortable and seen once again. And we're going to wrap this up here, right? When you are in a moment that allows you to lead, I want us to make sure that we are leading with compassion and humility. Compassion and humility. The reason why I say this, 2 years have passed, and in this, it has caused us to get so focused on ourselves that sometimes in moments where we're supposed to show compassion, we don't always get the chance to. because we're caught up on what we have going on here, what we have going on in life, and we miss opportunities to really be intentional and lean in like we just talked about a few slides ago. So how can I make sure that even through the mess that I'm dealing with, that I'm taking care of me because it's going to make me a better me for those that I serve? And then also the humility aspect. Let's continue to remain humble, right? One of the things, and I don't know if you've gotten a chance to realize it, we are sitting in a room right now where we still have our jobs, we still have things around us, but here it is, you look at the calamities going on over in Ukraine, you look at individuals who are unhoused even in our own state and space. There are folks that have it worse than us, and it's very easy for us to sit sometimes on our high horse and forget that the same way that it could be taken away for them, one bad moment, one bad instance, it can happen to us. So can we please make sure that in our leadership that we remain humble and keep our heads low to the ground, our ears close to those whose voices we need to hear so that we can go out and represent them correctly. And then I'm gonna get ready to just close it here. Remember that there's power in our consistency, our approach, our attitude, and the energy that we bring to every space. Consistency, approach, attitude, and energy. Each of you all in this space carries something that I believe will be so important. And that's not just your story. Yes, that's important, but it's the work that you do with your story. It's who you connect to and through with your story and with the work that you do. No matter, look, I don't care. Look, I know we got Lee Johnson in the space. You could be selling a car. You could be working at the desk. You could be at Chick-fil-A. You could be at any of these spaces, and it doesn't matter. Each and every one of us can still utilize that moment as a work to be on mission to help somebody else. And I just want us to be mindful of the fact that that comes through our approach. That comes through the attitude that we tend to carry on a day-to-day basis. Treating everybody equal, making sure that we are spreading the same love, even for those that we might not be familiar with. Because I truly do believe that we have something to share with each other. And that being said, I'm gonna share this final story. 2012 was like my first big student conference, 500 students. And I get on stage, I share my story, I give these points at the time, and I end up talking to literally all 500 students. 499, it took me about an hour and a half to get through. Number 500 walks up to me. Can I sit down and talk to you real quick? Round tables, very similar to this. We sit down, this student slides me a sheet of paper. And as I'm opening it up, the student says to me, after hearing you speak and after seeing your love and kindness, I realized that I don't need it anymore. And as I opened it up, it was a suicide note. She was getting ready to leave with her folks after she got back from the conference. And it hit me in that moment that whether we know it or not, it's not sometimes rocket science with how we lead. It's literally being available and present. Right? So I could have taken this an entirely different route when it comes to do this in leadership, which I would typically do. But no, we are starting from ground zero again with those that we serve, and we got to bring it back to the basics. How can I be present for those? Because maybe in the moment of you being present, whether you know it or not, you are helping to shift and alter a decision in somebody's life, definitely with the level of trauma and the experience that have come over the last 2 years, where it is now easier for folks to feel like, I want to give up. But not just to feel like I want to give up, that will openly take an opportunity to want to give up. For our students that are watching this, I just want to let you know that you are seen, you are valuable, and you are not alone. I know that there's been a ton of things that you have felt and that you might still be feeling. But there is help for you. These community leaders in this space, they love you, they care about you. Even if they don't know you, they're waiting to. That is a commitment that I believe all of us can make while we sit in this space today. So we're gonna get a chance to figure out the who's who in the room and in this the next time we come back in where our students will be available. Let's be ready and present for them. And I'll close with this quote from my second book, which is also the title of my podcast, Between the Dream. Between the Dream is a point between our present moment where we are and our promise where we will be. So the quote that I typically use is, you're not losing in life, you're not failing, you're simply between the dream. What is between the dream? It's the point between our present moment and our promise, where we are, where we will be. That space in between, I like to call that the process. Between the dream is the process. When you embrace your process, you embrace your progress, and I believe that as we embrace our progress, we can start to walk into every promise, purpose, and plan meant for our lives and then the lives of those that we serve. Kirkland Chamber of Commerce family, thank you all so much for your time. You're not losing in life. You're not failing. You're simply between the dream. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to thank you. I want to just open this space up in time right now because we had to pivot. I do want to open the space up for questions. I still wanted to be able to deliver even though we don't have our screen here. So this is the time. Please ask away. And I know, my friend, you said you had some?
Yeah, so relative to serving and leading where there is a need, have you heard from Pete Carroll?
That's a great way to start off the Q&A. I love that, right? I love that. You know, I know a few of the Seahawks. I'm gonna make some calls and be like, look, I can drop another 20 and be ready to go, okay? Like, you know, I can still probably run a good 4.6 if I need to. Got to get those hamstrings warmed up first, though. Any questions from anyone in the space? Yes, ma'am.
I have one. So with your focus today, which was fabulous.
Thank you.
So much. And us struggling to live in the present, what would you say is the importance of still setting those goals, your 5-year goals, your 10-year goals? Where do you see your life when it's still hard to get through that every day?
Yeah, so I think all we do is scale it back a little bit, right? So we can still have our 5-year goals and our 10-year goals, but I think in this, how can we start to be a little bit more mindful and intentional with the space in between, right? And so, yes, we are setting our goals for the long term, but maybe there are a few steps that need to kind of happen in between. The other thing that I would really love to encourage, and I've been talking to our students about this too, is that sometimes we have to shift our expectations, right? And I think that's been a huge part of the shift with COVID. If it hasn't taught us anything else, it's taught us that we've got to be able to pivot. And I think sometimes when we have those expectations met in the way that we see them or that we thought that they would be, it's one of those like throw in a towel moments. It's one of those like, I give up, well, never mind, maybe it wasn't meant for me type of things. So I think that in setting the goals, we set them, but we set them maybe and just say, what does it look like? For some of us, we have to scale it back because it's not all of us, right? But for some of us, instead of it just being 5-year, like, do I throw a 3-year in between, right? Do I do a 1.5 years? Some of us have to go month by month. Some of us have to go day by day. And I would encourage that because I believe that big things can still happen in small spaces. And I think that sometimes we forget that because we are looking for that walk-off grand slam home run just to be like, all right, Griffey, here we go, we did it. But what if that's not it, right? So in that, also realizing that even when it doesn't hit the mark of the expectation, it doesn't mean that we're not moving in the right direction forward, right? And so these might come through some daily mantras just to be like, look, this is the day here. This is what I plan to happen. But if it doesn't, this is what I was still able to accomplish. Same thing with our long-term goals. And this is something that I've personally been practicing because I feel like it's unpredictable almost every day. As an entrepreneur who's been in it for 10 years now, I'm like, every 3 months really looks different, you know? And so in this, I think because of where we are now, how do we scale it to a smaller degree to say what are some more attainable goals? Some people might call them SMART goals, whatever the case might be. But what are some more attainable goals that I can do right now that are going to ensure that if for nothing else, I'm staying on track to get to the longer one? Hope that helps. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, and I think to your point, the way I look at it is that kids today, I think there's a different set of peer pressures.
Mm-hmm.
There's a much more adult level set of peer
100%.
pressure. Than there is when I was growing up. And so I know I always tell my kids I'm a product as much as my successes and failures. And so that was a great talk with that. And it's just sort of realizing that when you're talking about goal making.
Thank you. To your point, too, I think it's important for our students still on. We still recording for students, too? I think this is important for us to realize, right? Like, as a millennial, I definitely catch a lot of flack for this, even though I try not to practice it. But, they call us the microwave generation. And, of course, Gen Z coming up after us, like, there is this piece of, like, now, where it's like, it has to happen now. And I just want to make sure that we're all remembering that life doesn't work like that. Now, I'm not saying we can't start investing into the now so that it can happen a little later on, but I think it's really important for us to make sure that, there is some groundwork that has to be laid, right? Guys, there's no such thing as an overnight celebrity, right? I know we say that a lot, but Mythbuster here, the reality is that it takes 10 years to make an overnight celebrity. People look at the work I'm doing right now and they're like, oh my God, you're killing it. You're around the world. You're this, that, and the third. And I'm like, but you didn't see the days where, I was running down the street trying to chase the repo man to get my car back, right? You didn't see, like, seriously, right? We've got to be honest, right? This is a part of that humility aspect, right? And I didn't get a chance to say this in my speech, but please, when we lean in, thank you for saying this, because you just reminded me there was one point that I really wanted to get to. When we lean in, please do not be afraid as business leaders, as individuals that they look up to with this prowess to say, I was once you, or this was my struggle. This is something that I had to go through. Because whether you know it or not, that level of vulnerability, I think it really does open up the doorway more for people to feel like, okay, wow, maybe I do need to reframe my mind around the goal aspect. Well, if mom can do it and mom had to go through this, then maybe I need to kind of shift my thinking too. If this business leader here in Kirkland, even though they're here now, you're telling me you had to do X, Y, and Z to get there. Whether you know it or not, those sharings of your story, and even from a personal side, I'm not saying you got to give them everything, but I think people being able to see you in that level of vulnerability could actually help to shift some of those kind of ideologies that are carried and maybe help those who struggle with that to get back on track and maybe kind of come up with a new game plan. So thank you.
A lot of us did not grow up with these things. I never had to deal with all the social things going on with these when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things are you seeing that we know that this stuff can cause a lot of depression
100%.
in the younger crowd? What kind of things are you seeing or recommending to people about how they should be utilizing their own smartphones to get them away from the crevice of depression?
Definitely. So we're going to take a deep dive into this on, I think, May 21st, if I'm not mistaken, for the NAMI Youth Mental Health Conference. One of our conversations is actually going to come around the usage of social media. So I'm just, a little shameless plug as a board member now, just saying, hey, you got some students, don't be afraid to bring them out, right? But to that point, though, boundaries is the first thing I think that needs to happen. I've been doing a lot of presentations with students around that. There have been documentaries that have come out that have shown like some of the social experiments and all of that. You asked me what I've been seeing. I think a lot of it, too, is just the healthy usage of it, right? To say, hey, and I know parenting has changed, times look different, but, like, my granddad was from the South. My father took after him, right? Parents are a little different nowadays, right? We're a little more lenient and lax, and I get that. But one of the things I miss sometimes is just that space of like a good no and a boundary behind that no to say, look, like, this was cool and it worked for now and you had your time with it, but let's start to create some other activities that we can do so that when students walk outside or children walk outside and they see a butterfly, they don't think it's a bird, right? Or see, like, seriously, right? Like, what creature is this, right? Like, we've got to be very, very mindful of that. But to the point of what I'm saying, the first thing I would say is that it's gotten out of hand from a standpoint of students, children, even young adults, us as adults at whatever age. Sometimes we lack boundaries, right? We can go to the bathroom. We should have been done in 2 minutes. Next thing you know, we've doom scrolled and we've been sitting on the toilet for 30 minutes doing absolutely nothing, right? So I think as we talk about helping our students, we got to look at ourselves sometimes too, right? But the boundary aspect, to say that I understand that while this can be used as a means to help, where is that line that says this isn't helping anymore? The next thing that I've seen, and this is probably the biggest one that I've seen with our students, is the aspect that as we are on social media, it becomes very easy to start comparing ourselves to what we see. Travel goals, relationship goals, couple goals, all of these goals, and then we look at us and we sometimes say, I'll never be there. This is real big when it comes to our students and those that we serve, looking at other people's lives, thinking that the 10% that we see is their entire life, not realizing that there's another 90 that hasn't been tapped into, right? And even in this perfect 10% presentation, it's still flawed. It took 20 tries to get that one perfect picture up on Instagram with my makeup. It took literally, I'm pretty sure some of us can go through our phone right now and we got a ton of negatives sitting in the camera roll because it didn't make the cut, okay? But that being said though, one of the things I've been working with students with around, because it's not just the phone, it's what we're doing. And a lot of it has to do with the social media aspect, right? And so in this, trying to reframe the mindset around this idea that what we're seeing and being presented with is not the end all be all, and it's not everything in everybody's life, right? And then trying to really bring it back to a humanistic standpoint to say that we all struggle. Even the people that we look at with millions of followers, they're going through just like us. They're not perfect, and you are enough the way that you are, right? One of my big quotes is, don't judge somebody's chapter 20 off of your chapter 5. Because it's very easy for us to start thinking that we're doing something wrong in those moments. So the two things that I've been seeing a lot of is the lack of boundaries when it comes to a time frame and how we're utilizing social media, how we're utilizing the phone, but then also to the comparison aspect. And just for good measure, let's sprinkle in the reality of how easy it is for us to be exposed to trauma on a daily basis now, right? And this actually was even before the George Floyd incident, where we were able to see this has been happening for a very long time, where it's easy to see fights on World Star. It's easy to catch glimpses of a homicide. Like, there are so many things, and the way that it's set up now, and this isn't just for students, this is us. We see a video that really hits us in the heart. We scroll up, we see something else. Somebody's taking a different angle of the same thing. Oh my God, I'm deeper in the action. Next thing you know, we scroll up, cute puppies and kittens, boom, scroll up. We've got a new menu recipe, boom, scroll up. We see trauma again, and it starts to hit in this cycle. So I think one of the things that we've got to be really careful about too is the usage of it from a standpoint of the information that we're taking in, because that can lead to the feeling of hopelessness too. The world's never going to get better, right? I can't, that's the feeling that I felt as we started to see and still see what's taking place over the news the last 2 weeks, right? It's those areas, right? So how are we creating healthy boundaries? How are we helping our students to realize that they don't need to compare and that they are enough? And then also too, how are we starting to really curb our intake when it comes to seeing so much? And it's not to say that we're ignoring it. It's simply to say that you don't have to ingest all of it. At some point, you've got to be able to walk away, go outside. How can we start getting our students more active when it comes to movement? Let's go outside and walk. Let's go run. Let's go down to the waterfront in Kirkland. The weather's getting better. Just those ideas around what are we creating to have those moments. For those of us that have family, this has been a big encouragement of mine. Let's get back to some Sunday dinners where we bring everybody around the table. We're not eating at the couch. We're going to sit down as one unit and we're going to take some time to be with each other. We're not going to wait for Thanksgiving. Easter's coming up, but we're going to do it before then. We're not waiting to Christmas. Seriously, we need to be intentional about those things. This is why I brought up my dad and my granddad, because these are things that they were real big on, right? I remember it wasn't until I got my cell phone when we stopped having family dinners, now that you mention it. Seriously, I was 15, so it was really football because I was practicing and playing all the time. But still, I think that the intentionality of our practices, our habits within our own homes, but then also within the communities that we serve and the people around us. That was a phenomenal question, by the way. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Your story is so powerful because it does offer others. And
Thank you.
even though we're on hopefully the downhill side of this pandemic, may it be so, there's another epidemic that we've experienced that really is in behavioral health.
Yes.
For those of us that work in healthcare, it's been an explosion, particularly for young adults and adolescents. And so, again, your experience and your story, and for all of us looking to help serve and help, the school districts
kind of interventions could have happened before you got to that point of self-harm? Are there things that can be done that you would recommend for us in healthcare or us in the school districts and getting the word out? So
100%. Absolutely. Thank you for that comment, first of all, that compliment. I really do appreciate that. The first thing that I would say is that I know that students that we serve, definitely behaviorally and also on the educational side, I talked about the safe space during my presentation, and one of the things that I know for me personally that I wish would have been around earlier, and we're starting to see a little bit of it, but it is the deconstruction of shame and guilt when it comes to our struggling, right? But then I think even more than that, there's an area of pride and ego that exists, definitely depending on where you come from community-wise, right? I think we family in this room. Can I be honest? Can I be transparent in this space? Yes, do I have permission? Okay, cool. I was brought up for a very long time being taught that depression and suicide was something that white people only go through. And then that didn't help that when you looked on the news in between soap operas or when you looked in between the commercials, every commercial that came out for like some mental health drug, depression, something that had to do with anxiety, the representation of it, it only showed one group of people. And I was like, oh man, so I felt for a long time like I was living in the wrong body, right? And I know a lot of our students, and I work with communities all throughout the country, right? So we're talking Lewiston, Idaho, to the hood of Chicago. And this is something that's been big no matter where we are, has been this idea that, oh, it's not just confined to one group, but anybody can struggle with these things. I think in doing that, what it helped to do for me, and if I had it more then like I have it now, I think what I'm learning from students too is that it causes them to feel seen. So I think the shame, the guilt, and the pride aspect is one component. But then too, you know, one word that we're throwing around a lot is normalize, right? Well, I think we've got to start figuring out how we take some time to normalize these conversations in a way where folks don't feel like they have to fold up and run away, but simply to say like, no, I can sit in here and it's okay, right? That comes through, I think, a multitude of ways, right? I'm doing some work with Premier Blue Cross right now on working within communities that don't really have the help on the mental health side, right? So the representation aspect matters, like seeing people that look like you, but then also too, seeing individuals that you know care, that they're not just here to write off another form, to take some check marks and then pass it on to the next person. But going back to that lean in piece, to actually see professionals in the field come into the space where we're not just in our offices, but we're our open door, right? Like we are present at the events that we put on, and it's not just our advisors and our street teams doing it, but it's us here too. The sharing aspect, I did not hear someone who remotely, and I'm not talking about just being a black man, I'm talking about just overall as a man. I didn't hear a man open up about their mental health until I opened up about my mental health, right? So I think that was another component that I think we could all really take from, is having individuals who can open up, and folks that we feel some kind of connection to, right? Representation across the board matters. And I think in that, had I seen that, I probably wouldn't have gone down there. But then also too, and I know this is, you know, we could start getting into like a systemic conversation. I meant what I said, like we were lucky in the Chicago public school system if we had a counselor in our school, right? Now, granted, that's changed now, we have more, but even when you talk about funding and how things work there, like there's a lot that I believe that could be done on that side too. But I really do believe that we've got to start scoping that space of shame, guilt, and then representation. Those three make such a huge difference. And then from there, it opens a doorway of invitation for us to deeper lean into people, because now we have their mouths and our ears can go back and do greater work for them. Thank you. I saw you with the mic. That means I'm at time. There we go. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, real quick, for everybody interested, I left cards out at the registration desk, so if you need to grab one, they are out there. Thank you all.